Hola, hola, and buenos dias, GnGs. Buenos dias, buenos noches. It's been a long, long ass time. My name is Shrek with 2Ks, and this is Weekend Crypto, and it has been a real long minute since I have done this. So, a catch up for what this particular segment on the Gentleman of Crypto Network is about is basically I do a recap of crypto related stories that are during the week, kind of dive into them a little bit more, and then spit them out. Traditionally, it was on a Monday morning, right? Um, I'm gonna get into a little bit of the more nuances and changes and whatever in a minute, but excuse me. For the folks who've been down for a minute, that's what it was. I don't do the price talk stuff, so I'm not telling you where you need to put your crypto thing because I'm not a financial advisor, I'm not a CPA, and I'm not a trader, y'all. Like lessons learned. That is not my cup of tea. We definitely got some smarter people out here who are much better at that than I. So I leave that to those folks because that's not my lane, right? I just give you some crypto stories and put some different spin and context on it compared to what you might hear from other mainstream sources or other crypto people who are also covering the news. And sometimes I just find those things that nobody else is talking about. And in my opinion, there tends to be a lot of those things. But nonetheless, you see what the title of this actually is, right? And so let me get into that whole deal, right? As far as like, what's that about? And oh man, appreciate the folks tapping in. Um, so yeah, Metaverse President, what's going on, my guy? Appreciate you. So, all right, let me get into the title. I got a couple of stories. I don't even know if I'm gonna get into them because I don't know how long or how short this is gonna end up being, right? So it's been it's been like 13 or 14 months since I jumped on, right? And the bottom line is I got to the burnout phase, y'all. That like the bottom line is that, but like other things were adding into it. So I'm gonna give some context, but obviously I'm not gonna give you the everyday ins and outs and the woe is me shit of life, right? But it boils down to I got to the burnout phase of having to be on with the content and then um having to pay attention to stuff, and then other things were happening in life, and it's just like, okay, like I didn't look at no crypto news stuff today, I don't even know what's going on. Then there was the other part of like just x number of things, or not things but the projects that I was like, all right, bet, like this technology makes sense, this is going to be dope, or it has the potential pardon, it has the potential to do good things and make a change within like the tech space, right? Not just, oh, it's a technology that was worth investing in. No, this would make actual good development and make headway within technology. All of those things crapped out. Um, Helium, right? Helium, I thought as far as like, how radio technology in terms of data transfer and stuff, that was going to be dope. Obviously, the rest, for those who was following Helium, obviously the rest of the community thought different, right? So they wanted to get the bag. The those of us who was more about like, let's see this technology develop out, we lost out in the votes. Like every time it came to get the bag, people voted that way. Get the bag, screw the tech stuff. All right, lost out on that, right? Um, then it was just seeing how things were going during the what is that? Not the 2024 period, but within the latter half of 23, and just Ethereum was doing what it's doing. Um, they, in my opinion, slowly but surely inching into more of the corporate space, even though arguably there are things on the back end with who's connected to who that are already putting them in the corporate space. So that was another thing going on. Um, I was just looking at the landscape and it's like, it doesn't seem like we are making any progress to what the early ideals were. And I look at the stuff now, especially over like this last like 6 months on what I see here in the US. And then like so and again, I pretty much like dropped paying attention to everything. Here and there, I might have looked at, when King did a live, but I just didn't jump in, right? I just watched a little clip of it and then kept it moving. Haven't been paying attention to none of the price stuff for BTC, um, and just not paying attention to any of the stuff, man. And it was just so crazy to me for when things started coming on the radar, on how they were coming on my radar, like what was it? I think like when BTC hit above 90, somebody who was totally anti-crypto hit me up about it. And I was like, word? I didn't even know. What's going on, top southern ends? What's up, man? Um and then it's crazy to me now. Like I'm down in warmer weathers. I'm not saying super warm weathers, but a little bit warmer than my normal DMV area. I'm down in Georgia right now, and like the amount of people, especially on the military side, and y'all know, gang. That's a whole nother like thing to run down as far as the gang side stuff. Green suiters. Um, and how many military people I hear now talking about crypto when I was first talking to people about it and like, oh yeah, I got into Doge at this point and blah 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 blah, or like, yeah, I literally had someone say recently, like this week, I'm trying to get like 1,000 what was it, Tether? It was one of the ripples, or it was either a ripple or it was tether, one of them, before like the end of this month or next month or some stuff like that, right? And again, like I'm just looking at this like wow, like we've come away. And then listening again, I'm not paying attention to the news stories like that. So when stuff is coming to me, it's like already elevated past where I would look at it from. So, what's Guy? Shout outs to Guy, and he does what is that? Coin Bureau, I think is the name of his channel. He's the British dude. Cool dude, by the way. Um, he just did something that was talking about how Russia is now changing their stance. Like, if you've been down with me since both like 2022, before, like I was talking about how Russia was changing their legal framework around crypto from before 2022, before COVID, right? He puts out something, I want to say it was either today or yesterday, that talks about now how Russia is looking at promoting or at making legal framework to promote mining, Bitcoin mining. I don't know if it's going to branch out into crypto mining in general, but it's basically Bitcoin mining, right? And I'm just like, yo, like, in one hand, it's one of those like, I was saying this back when about how Russia was going to move towards crypto more. This is before we have the whole Ukraine situation, and then like the US doing what it's doing as far as the embargoes and stuff like that. And I even talked about that when what's the dude's name from the Treasury Department? It's a Nigerian dude. Well, background is I believe he's Nigerian, right? But nonetheless, like when they started making that move, it was just like, well, it looks like they're pushing a faster pace of the Russian central bank and their financial governing bodies to figure out how to deal with this crypto thing in a faster manner. Then you get into this whole thing of how BRICS is moving and like how they're finding all these ways to move around the Western slash American sanctions, right? And it's all happening. But like the idea that I was saying all this stuff back when, and again, before we even have the whole Ukraine situation, before we have the level of where we are now with the Taiwan stuff going on, right? And China stuff. And just I'm looking at it all and it's just like, yo, this is wild to me in terms of like there's the prophecies, the early calls, the projections, the hypothesis of like how this would play out going forward. But like as we've moved forward and the actual situations and events that have like pushed for the propagation and the expansion or the adoption of cryptocurrencies or blockchain technologies um, within the larger geopolitical landscape, like the significance on that level versus well, like, yeah, of course it's already global. Like, technically, you're not allowed to do um, crypto mining in China, but it doesn't mean that they don't do mining. Technically, you're not allowed to do crypto mining in like Kuwait, but I promise you, there are a number of mining farms in Kuwait, right? Like, technically, Russia makes it where you cannot pay for products or services in crypto, right? But it doesn't mean that people don't do it. Why? Because if you have your own wallet and you self custody, that's person to person, right? And we got to remember, like, the Silk Road and shout out to my guy from the Silk Road. um we're going to see if his situation play out with the new administration coming in where he gets to go home to his mom, right? Mom gets to see her son, hopefully. We don't know. We'll see. But like that even situation of where it was already a proof of concept that blockchain technologies worked, specifically Bitcoin's blockchain worked, to show that you can pay for things in this digital manner and as a financial instrument, right? Because at this point, the technology is just one thing, right? But we have different applications of the technology. Blockchain as a financial instrument, it works. And we've known this for more than 10 years now, right? But here we are. And I'm, I just be looking at this going like, is this what, I don't know if to say like the regular folks, um, how am I saying this? Like, there are those of us who have been involved in crypto before it became the money maker popular thing, right? And then even within that, there's tiers of it, right? There's the folks who are, I was on the techie side before a lot of the other tech people, or like I was in it and I decided to like make a company around it, right? And then there's the folks who are like, just grab some stuff and I just said, hey, whatever, let's see what happens. But like the business folks from back then to where we are now, and it's just like, did y'all see it making this turn? Did y'all see it expanding or going through? Because again, now we're not just at the like, and in one way, I'm kind of actually glad that this is playing out in a more global scale, in a more global stage. because there's definitely a point, and this was actually last year, this was definitely one of the things that really, really annoyed me, in that this whole thing of like, let's talk about Bitcoin or let's talk about crypto as a it's an American thing, or let's talk about this technology as a we have to dominate it, or it can only be a us thing, or we have to do things to gate guard it, right? The patriotism thing that was being pushed by a lot of the American senators and Congress people, as well as even in the other countries too, like those folks over in like Europe or um, out in the Asian countries that were pushing the the thing of like, well, we want blah blah blah, fill in the blank, to be the hub of crypto or the future city of crypto, and it's just like, but that literally goes against what the early concept was. That literally goes against how the technology is supposed to work, right? Because again, if we talk about this whole thing of like even just the practical basic shit, right? The idea of it being borderless is I can go anywhere in the globe, and as long as I have some ability to have the transaction be recorded to the network as being completed between two parties, then it doesn't matter what time zone I'm in. It don't matter the zip code. It don't matter the legal jurisdiction. It don't matter the president. It don't matter, what I'm saying, the color of my skin, the gender. None of that stuff matters, because the technology is like, I just do this one thing. I record the transaction happened between A and B. But then when you put people in it, then when you put um, political ideals, when you put political agendas, when you put money um, in the mix of like, oh well, I want to make blah 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 amount of money. Like the when I tell you 2024 annoyed me so much for some of the stuff that I heard. And again, I stepped away, wasn't paying attention to the Twitter, the IG. Yo, shout outs to Sergeant Crypto. Um, there's a couple other people too that I cannot remember right now, but for the folks who were checking in with me, shout outs to King, um, shout outs to Zay. But like for the folks who were hitting me up more on the like, yo, what's going on, bro? Like when you jumping back in, like you ain't do a show in a minute. Like I appreciate King, I appreciate on the like, he ain't hound me or nothing, and he was just on some like, I hit him up one day and I was just like yeah, I'm over here doubling down on this side of life right now, and I feel burnt out, and I don't really got nothing to say. He was like, all right, like we here when you're ready. I appreciate. Um, it just, and again, it was just other things going on in life. Like I was dealing with my mom being moved from one state to the other. I was dealing with like work stuff and trying to like land my feet in a more advantageous position. So I ended up doubling down on the gang side. Like you already know, I'm nasty girl. If you green suitor, you know what that's all about. And so I doubled down on that, and it was just like, all right, I need to get this other stuff situated, and then I'll come back to this. Like I'll come back to it when I feel the draw again. And it just so happened that like I would I would every here and there like pop my head up and be like, nah, I'm not feeling it. A month would pass by. I might look through Twitter, look at some people's stuff. I'm not feeling it. And then just go back to what I was doing. 2 months passed by. I seen somebody post something. Somebody hit me in a Twitter DM. Yo, what's going on with? I don't know. I can't tell you. I ain't paying attention to nothing. And it's also interesting to note, like just like how we've been saying it for how long, like look at all this time that has passed, and when we got into the election cycle, what happened? Crypto talk starts popping up. oh, we're gonna do blah 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 with crypto. Yeah, we're gonna make blah 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 BTC. And you see what's going on with all the AI meme coins and meme coins, and like that stuff is doing what it's doing, is going crazy. And then you also see how because I had to pay some level of attention to my email traffic. So you then see in that regards, hey, what's going on, Power 9? Company. No idea on that one, bro. I don't even know how the platforms are working right now for being able to do those types of things. Um, again, like, I yeah, man, like Ave, all of that. Like, I just stopped with everything. And you know what's crazy for like 2023? Yeah, part of what started getting me to slow down was talking with my CPA. And shout outs to my CPA guy, CJ the Smart guy. My man is out here doing these international trips now. Like, like, yo, it's so crazy, and it's still like great to see um folks that I know in this space, like folks that I know, like I've talked to them, I've sat down, I've ate with them, I've gone out, I've hung out with them and stuff, and like seeing those folks make these like career progressions in relation to this space. Um, and he definitely has found his niche as a CPA. Like, and so as I was saying for 2023, like if you here in the US, man, like cross your T's and dot your I's, especially if you out here playing all willy-nilly, or even if you're being conservative. Because if you haven't noticed at this point, damn near all of the American or even international exchanges that allow Americans or people who hold US citizenship to be on a platform, the last like 9 to 6 months, they've been sending out updates of terms of service. What did you think that mean? Um, and then what happened the other day? I'm gonna bring these 2 points together, which for me, slowing down and stepping back in 23 because of one of the things that CJ was saying to me, where it's just like, yeah, man, like your crypto activity for the previous years, like crazy. Now, granted, I'm not one of the craziest clients he's had, but he was just on some like, yeah, you definitely got to do better on the tracking. But you got to remember, for when I got in, and then for what was going on back then with how we was recording stuff or how we weren't recording stuff, or for whatever we were doing, it was a different ball game back then. For the stuff that's going on now, and there's this proposal now where you have to now make, what is it? Either you have to either now do it where, especially if you're on exchanges and doing stuff, you have to like do something with marking your, are you doing first in first out, and there's like a couple of other things. But the real kicker for it to me, as far as how this tax stuff is going, how the IRS is moving, how the Department of Finance, it's not the SEC that's doing this, it's the IRS and it's somebody else. But and shout outs to Reggie, yo. And I'm gonna say shout outs to Reggie on this because Reggie called this a while ago. And I remember it was kind of a back and forth on it was pushback when he said it. And it basically boiled down to like, because of the um no, we would say a Bitcoin is a Bitcoin, right? A Satoshi is a Satoshi. But Reggie was making a point. Um, it shouldn't be. Yeah. Honestly, I think Power of Nine. I think that the safe harbor label is the safe harbor laws that they're talking about, where it's the whole claiming your stuff and you have a window of period to be able to do blah blah blah. Like, I think that it's in my opinion, in my small random guy on the internet opinion, it is a ruse, and it will come to bite the public back down the road. More than likely after Trump's administration. So whoever comes after Trump, but definitely by the second administration, two administrations down from Trump. Because that's like 8 years at that point. Well, up to 8 years at that point. But it will come to bite the public back because they'll say one thing now, and then remember, they can still make the amendments and the rules and all of that stuff. What's going on, Nerd Up? They can make the amendments and the rules and the changes after the fact. Like the whole point is to move you and inch you slowly but surely towards whatever this up here end goal is, right? And so to that point though, like, so the thing I was saying about Reggie, because Reggie made a point about how you can block um Bitcoin transactions because of being able to identify the individual Satoshi stuff, right? I appreciate the love, whoever sent it, right? Um, and so, what this new thing that they're talking about with the IRS, if I'm understanding it correctly, it sounds like they're going to do something that starts looking at being able to individually identify the crypto in the transaction. Again, they talking a good game now about safe harbor and making it sound nice. But that doesn't mean that's what it's going to be at the end of this administration, in the next administration, or the administration after that. Because the bigger issue for all governments right now is how do we get our citizens or the people who are within our jurisdiction to be taxed, right? That's going to be an issue for like another 100 years before we move off of this thing of like people can just work and or people do work and then they get some level of credit thing that doesn't work towards like taxation. The taxation thing, we're not, how am I saying this? In my opinion, us as a civilization, and because of how governments are um, formed in how they spend, financially speaking, not economically, but financially speaking, which is through financialization. The tax thing is not going to go anywhere for a very long time. Like I'm talking multiple generations down the road. But the more present issue until we get to that part of where we're not talking about, well, what's your wage or how much you make per year or shit like that, right? Is all these governments are trying to figure out how do we come up with systems and how do we implement tools that allow us to tax the people for what their labor is being compensated in a financial instrument called fiat, right? So you go to work, whether you're salaried or whether you're wage grade, meaning you're paid hourly, you get X amount of compensation for your time. All these governments around the world are going, well, how do we get our cut of that money to fund this bigger machine called the government? And that's not going to go anywhere for a while. That's just the way this society works. Now, granted, there are the little nuances for how these different countries, these different regions, these different jurisdictions, like the percentage may vary, and then they might do other things where they'll label something not as a tax, but they'll give it some other whatever name that's like non-identifiable, but it's still a tax. At the end of the day, it's still a tax. So you have it that like I look at what is going on with us in the US and for where we are right now with how Trump is talking his good smack. And I mean, it sounds cool. It does, right? Um, Trump stuff sounds cool. Yeah, okay. So Power 6 9, I hear what you're saying as far as the, like, zero on the thing, but the issue is it's multiple issues, but one of the issues is, again, these governments are trying to figure out how to get money out of their people, or how to get money out of the people within their jurisdiction. And then to I was listening to somebody today talk about, like, the whole thing about conservative and small governments, and it's just like, that makes sense if this was like 1900. That makes sense if this was like 19 or like 1862, right? That's not where we are. Like, the political system doesn't work that way for us to be a small government, or for anybody to be a small government right now. And the economic system doesn't work that way. And I can't even call it the economic system. It's really the financial system doesn't work that way, because X number of governments work off of debt. It isn't a matter of, like, you produce enough product, not services, product, to be able to say we can sell enough stuff to other countries, and have it be that from the sale of those things, we can pay for all of what we do internally, or what we do externally if we do foreign investment. And, like, for the people that are on my radar now, when I listen to some of those folks talk, and I try to compare it to what I hear the more closer to home, yeah, but who's buying the bonds, bro? Who's holding the bonds? The better question: who's holding the bonds? Because, like, a month or two ago, there was a whole thing about how the Chinese bonds is doing better than American bonds. I'm not no super smart dude when it comes to the financial money stuff, but again, if you start comparing what the outside folks are saying and the inside folks are saying, and I'm not talking the inside folks as far as, like, mainstream folks, but people who can at least be acknowledged as, this person knows about this particular field. So, God, what's that name? The dude, Stephen Keen. Um, he's like a known economist. Um, if you listen to, or if you have folks on your radar like Jeffrey Sachs, or God, what's his name? The older dude, and it's two of them that I can't think of right now, but I can so picture their faces, and the names are probably going to come to me at some point. But if you're listening, here's the point of what I know, right? When you start taking what the people who are countering the mainstream narrative say, case in point, we just got the jobs report out, and X number of YouTube people that I pay attention to are X number. Oh, X number of the YouTube people that I pay attention to who are talking about, like, the American market is this way. It's a good thing that the stock market is doing this, and, like, people can make money, and here's how you do blah blah blah. Those folks are taking the official government numbers and going, look, everything is great. The other folks that I pay attention to are like, hey, I get that the government is putting out these numbers, but you have to understand it in the context of, yes, there are more jobs that people are working, but it's because we are having an increase in the number of people who are working more than one job. Hey, what's going on? Shout out to the Jump Out Girls. Hey, I seen your thing the other day about the CBDC stuff. Yo, When that joint come out, is when it comes out, comes out. And I'm gonna get into that one in a minute. But so nonetheless, like it's the context of yes, the job numbers is up, unemployment kind of went down, but what mainstream is not doing is giving you the devil's in the detail about how we are also having an increase in more people working more than one job, right? So you got more people working more than one job, and I just show you a graph showing that the job employment thing went up. Of course it looks good. Of course it sounds great. And what is it? Before last week, it was number of people like, yeah, stock market's doing great. Da 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 da. And then I just seen some stuff where people are like, yeah, the crash is gonna start to come in. Like, and here's another point to know, right? Stock buybacks was illegal, I think like 20 or like more than 15 years ago. Stock buybacks was an illegal practice. Where we are now is stock buybacks is a common practice, right? I'll have to read that in a minute, too long. And stock buybacks are a artificial way to increase the market value of stocks. And it also does a thing where it generates money velocity within the stock market because it makes it look like there is activity. But the activity is the house buying back what it put out initially. Like that is not, in terms of financing, that is, it is an activity, right? But in terms of when you say, well, is the company actually getting more buyers of their product or service? No. Is the company um, pushing more product? No. In fact, the company downsized. They cut 1,000 people. They sold off, 3 production facilities. So then, if the stock goes up, but the company is shrinking, how does that make sense? It makes sense because for the way that we look at money and understand finance, it's being pushed as though finance is like the real world. Finance is not the real world. Finance is not economics. Economics is more on the physical production of stuff and the physical ability to provide the product or service. Case in point, if you go to a hotel, case in point, if you go to a restaurant, right? That's a service. But this other stuff we do, like this is where we are. And when I look at how the crypto stuff is being moved over into it, and again, I wasn't paying attention to a number of things last year, but I see stuff, and by the time it actually comes to me, it's one of those like, oh man, that's probably like a week or something old, like as far as news is concerned. But it's happening, and it's in my mind, what we're seeing happen with crypto right now for governments, Bitcoin is the gateway drug. And Bitcoin is going to work for a little bit. Like, here's how I kind of see this playing out. It'll be brought in, and at some point, and again, this might not happen within the Trump administration, at least for here in the US, right? But someone is going to look in another jurisdiction, another country, right? To be like, well, how do we deal with financializing? And granted, we do have mechanisms that work to financialize Bitcoin when we put it in yield farming stuff or smart contracts, blah 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 blah. But like that's a mini scale stuff. It's still retail level. I'm talking about like when you get the Black Rocks and like the central bank like central banks involved in it, like like we think what's the thing called, monetary easing, or what's the other one, financial tightening, is like this unbelievable thing now. Wait till they put blockchain type technology, and notice I say type because I don't think it's going to be full open to the public. Everyone can see stuff like we have with how like a Bitcoin blockchain or an Ethereum blockchain can work, which gets into the whole CBDC thing, right? Blockchain like open, or what's that, public like blockchains. Um, the CBDC stuff. The killer part about the CBDC stuff, and shout outs to the Jump Out Girls and a couple of other folks who have been jumping on this, right? Like, in my mind, I hear a lot of people focus on the privacy aspect of how like your privacy is going to be gone. But you got to remember, for like how it is if you live in any um, technology modern society, even if you are, well, if the majority of your society's technology or banking system, or your banking system is tech based, right, where um, you have less circulation of the physical fiat, like privacy is privacy is really cut away, right? um yeah, so you have it that the privacy factor for how we look at it, like what's her name, Lynette Zhang, is it Lynette Zhang? I think I'm saying her name wrong, but she lives over in like Sweden or something now. She was making a point and arguing for a while before C19 happened, where it was like more people need to carry this fiat stuff. They need to hold it on their own, because when they push everything digital, that's where y'all gonna have issues, and it's gonna be issues that like you don't even see coming. And this is where the CBDC things come in, right? Because like at least with X number of the cryptocurrencies, I can hold it in my own wallet. I can self custody, aka self custody, and like I can um, store, transfer, spend as I please, right? But when you get into some of the regulations or some of the ideas I've heard is where like they want to outlaw um, personal like self custody wallets. Like I see how you could quote make a law about it, but for where we are now, it wouldn't work well enough in the public because you don't have enough adoption yet still. Now granted, there's a shit ton more people who are into crypto, but like I forgot what I was looking at the other day, and they were like, "Yeah, here is a safe way to, get cryptocurrencies." And everything that they said was about basically going through um, a an exchange, because if you go through the exchange, you have to KYC, right? And so it's one of those like that's so crazy. Like people who are coming in now post C19 think that the only way to get crypto is from an exchange. Like, I'm mind blown when I speak to some of these new people who got in 23, 24, even in the whole C19 period. And this is like, wait, what? Who told you that? Where'd you learn that? But that's where we are right now, right? But to the CBDC thing, aka what I call the blue dog, um, the bigger scare. It isn't a privacy scare, because remember, for where we are now, outside of you holding the money in physical fiat, if it's in a banking system of any type, OFAC, SINFIN, IRS, FinCEN, FDIC, IRS, Department of Justice, the Department of Treasury, all of them can touch your money and say you can't have it. If any of your money is in any banking institution, any financial, Charles Schwab, Robinhood, Webull, there's another one. I can't even think of another one right now. But all of those different types of financial institutions I just named, Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, Charles Schwab, Fidelity, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Trust, all of those different financial institutions, and then those agencies and departments that govern them can all touch your funds. I remember I had said this. If you think your funds are safe in a bank, there was a case that happened in California at the beginning of C19 where the FBI went into safety deposit box. They went in there for one particular thing. And they went in and took the whole room out. Those people are still fighting in court today to get their stuff back. And I'm talking about the legitimate people, all the people who was, and I, in my mind, I argue that they went in there because they had good enough, I don't know to say evidence, but they had good enough reason to believe that X amount of the accounts that had safety deposit boxes in that financial institution were based on illicit activity. And it was enough for them to be like, yo, we could just go in and grab this and like, you're going to have to come and claim this if you really want this. And a number of people have not claimed it. A number of people have sued the FBI. And a handful of people have been compensated so far because they were able to, through their own documentation, say, that's mine, give it back. I didn't do nothing illegal. But the FBI fought tooth and nail to give people back their money, their fiat, whatever they had inside those safety deposit boxes. Imagine that. You didn't do nothing. It was all legal. And yet you have to argue with the FBI about getting your stuff back. That's where we at right now. And that case was still going on. Like I only heard about that, the latter situation of people, some of the people getting their stuff back last year, but it happened before 22. There's another case. The IRS has the right to be able to, if they are investigating me and we have financial activity between our banking institutions, they can go to the bank and be like, hey, let me get so-and-so's bank information. The bank nor the IRS have to tell you that they have collected well, the bank doesn't have to tell you that they gave your information to the bank. And then the IRS doesn't have to tell you that they're going through your business. That's where we at right now. That case happened like 2 years ago. Again, like the point of my rant right now onto the CBDC thing. Yeah, privacy is definite. Like we at least have some level of gate guard that you just can't like jump in and be able to like see everything, right? We have some level of blockage, whether it be through court orders or like just how the legal system works, whatever. But when it's a legal actor it's a different animal. But nonetheless, right, with the CBDC thing, the thing that gets me with the technology part of it is that for how crypto works right now, right, open markets based on what's going on with the exchanges, and yes, most of it, not most of us, there are those of us who understand that there is definitely price manipulation going on with um, the exchanges, right? But when you get to the CBDC level of it, it comes into a CBDC is a CBDC as what the central bank or quote that government says it is. What does that mean? That means that, like, let's say you get 5 CBDCs, right? And one CBDC represents, let's say, $50. Now, let's go with $1. No, let's go with five. $100, right? Let's say the government goes, well, the market is doing this. We need to make it that the value of the one CBDC goes up to $110. That's a push of a button. So now you went to sleep and you was like, oh, well, my CBDC is worth $500. You woke up, my CBDC for my purchasing power of what I can buy with it is now $101, right? This isn't a market thing. This isn't what the open market says when you look across and aggregate the different exchanges and like what the inputs are. This is the one central jurisdiction going, press the button. This is the new number as of midnight. Then let's say 2 days later, whatever rationale they use, and they're like, oh man, we kind of overstepped it. We need to correct back the other way. Your one CBDC is now going to be worth $90. Don't get me wrong, the privacy factor is a thing, but the ability for them to, in a more direct way and through a very, very much more centralized funnel, control the purchasing power amount of the CBDC as well as the um, purchasing direction of the CBDC. Meaning, um, for the early introduction, it'll be, hey, you could spend your money on blah, blah, blah. Like, just go spend it like it's going to be marketed like, go and spend it like it's regular money. Give it one or two administrations because we need a couple of years for the adoption point to turn, right? Then it's going to turn into, oh, well, you can't spend it in this store. You can't spend it on this product. And I'll give you an example of how we already are there here in the States. ETB cards, right? They are a financial instrument that is given out to, yes, exactly. That is given out to um, people who are claiming they need financial support from the government, right? And I'm not even going to say poor people because there's definitely some people who are not poor who are definitely grabbing that bag too. So now you like, so with ETV stuff, right? Like, and I forget what it stands for here in the States, but like you go to the store and you're like, well, let me buy um, cold cuts. But more specifically now, right? You have like natural livestock stuff that's like, let's say, organic, and then you have the regular, not regular, the subsidized GMO livestock stuff, right? it can go in the direction of where you can't buy um, the organic stuff. You can only buy the GMO stuff. Even now, like I know when you go into certain supermarkets, you'll see where it says like this is WIC approved. So it's an automatic that you can use your ETB card to get that product. X amount of times, it isn't the top shelf name brand stuff, but if you did grab the other stuff, you might not have an issue depending on where you at. Just throwing it out there on that one. The point being is that the bigger issue is the yes, facts. Back in the day, you could have yes, in Maryland, I believe you could still do it in Maryland. Um you can get a number of things on the ETB card that you would just not have thought was like a thing. Like this is like that don't sound quote like poor people food. All right. Um but like you can't buy cigarettes with an ETB card. You can't buy dip with an ETB card. But like think about this on the level of yeah, there's some kind of digital setup on the back end that you can't buy the cigarettes or you can't buy, you know, the dip. Um, but think about it in terms of like you can't buy X, Y, and Z thing, and then you only have X amount of time to spend this. That's the part that like a lot of folks aren't talking about with this the CBDC stuff because it's not like I don't know. I feel like the CBD conversation has died down, but I also wonder is it going to pick back up like when we're into the new administration, like maybe the latter part of the first year, maybe into the second year. I think the US's thing is like due for public this year, I think. But you know, our favorite friends to the east, like China already showed us proof of concept. It works. You have more than what is it, 20 million people. Remember, China's in the billions. So like if 20 million people was like, oh cool, I can get some of this stuff, and they did what they did and they showed it at work, like, guess what? We're watching them going, oh, all right, that's how y'all did it. All right, well, we're not gonna per se do it that way, but we're gonna try, and we'll see how our folks adopt it. Like, you know what I wonder? Who's doing the new what is it called? What is it called? Um, who's doing the the test groups for like what company, what marketing company is doing the test groups for how they're going to push CBDCs in the US. Like I don't like and people might think like, well, that's not really a product or service, or like why would they do that? Like listen, we test grouped how we did WMDs. Like we test grouped, and I forgot the name for the firm that did the test group on how to sell us going into Iraq to the public, and they made bank. They made bank off of it, and I cannot remember the name for the group that did it, but I wonder who's doing that and like how are they seeing the 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 ability to like push it through? Because I don't think that Trump, like obviously we're all gonna say he's not the brightest light, you know, the brightest candle in the window or whatever. And then just for what his cabinet looks like, it's just like, I think some people are lying to you about what's going on ground in a number of the topics that your people are supposed to cover. But whatever, like, is it going to be any better or worse than Biden? Folks, time will tell. Time will tell, right? But nonetheless, we're going into this new administration, and I'm honestly still trying to figure out what I'm going to do with this channel. Um, because I don't know, like in the overall, I don't feel the draw just yet as far as stuff with what's going on in crypto. In the most part, I'm actually annoyed and disappointed. Again, and it's not just a BTC thing. Um, Even within the other stuff, like I had initially started talking about, like the other projects and other technologies that were being introduced or funded through like some crypto mechanism platform, whatever. Um, Once people started catching it's all about the bag and just that, it's like, well, economic sovereignty goes out the window, right? Like, because if it's really just about chasing the bag and moving the price up, like it's it's like a balance. Is it a balancing, a teeter, a seesaw thing, where in terms of the survivability or like the long run, is it let me get the bag now? And again, it only takes but one or two rules and regulations to like pop out to be like, all right, well, that company's totally gone. Okay, well, that whole sector is out the window, or like the sector or the companies or companies, plural, just totally leave a market, and it's like, all right, well, we're not messing with this. This is just y'all are making it too complicated, which is what's been going on for the U.S. in the last couple of years. Um, a number of companies are just a number of the exchanges are just like, yeah, we're not even messing with y'all. Like, come back. We'll come back when y'all have a better understanding of what you're doing with your legislation, because you got congressional folks just talking real reckless, and then y'all are implementing stuff that's just like, why are you being this complicated? Again, in my opinion, it boils down to all of these governments are having the same issue of trying to figure out how to capture all of the financial activity of the individuals within their jurisdiction, and then figuring out how do they get their cut of that financial activity. And when we look around the globe, that's what we see. Um, from China to Latin America, it's the same play out that we see governments trying to figure out how do we get the money out of these people by implementing policies and legislation that basically comes down on the people at the individual level. And for that, I don't know which way to go with this segment on here. If it's just like taking it more as a keeping record of these developments, um, versus the trying to give some kind of like context or insight into some of the things. Because I don't, how do I say this? I don't know if, for me, with how the technology works, but then what I see with the nature of people in political positions or in financial gain positions, and I'm not talking like the regular average Joe person, oh well, I got like, you know, 100,000 worth in blah 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 crypto. No, no, I'm talking about like the Elon Musk folks, the Michael, what's his name folks. Like those folks are in a very very different tax bracket, right? Those type of folks, their conversations and their thought processes are very different because their operational environment is not the same as somebody who makes 150,000 for the year. You're not in the same tax bracket. I know damn sure I'm not in that tax bracket, right? And so when you have folks like that making decisions that will impact this propagating technology that has an application for financial instrumentation, it isn't it isn't going to be so that the average person like myself, like X number of you who are watching this right now, is going to be in a advantageous situation. If anything, it will be for you to at least be at the bare minimum, right? You're not going to be poor, but you're gonna be able to have to keep the car up, get the new thing, get that new lease, take that trip here and there. It won't be like a super 3 month, a month long trip. It'll be that week, you know. Um, wait, what's this? You think that at this point the U.S. would own hotel chains and own city smart investments would own hotel? I don't know where you went with that one. Yeah. Hey, the U.S. is the U.S. government is the largest employer in the U.S. Take that for what it's worth, right? And the irony is, we're not even doing it like who is that? FDR, who did the thing of like employing people to do the interstate highway and like other development projects. I think it was FDR. I might be wrong on that one, but I forget which president did that. But nonetheless, y'all, like um, I figured that it was due time that I actually came back on for the warrior folks who, been checking with me and being like, all right, here's what's been going on, man. Like, I had to make some adjustments. I got burned out. I was getting disappointed with what I saw going on in the space. And I had to figure out some other things because this crypto thing was not going the way that I thought it would have by now. And it was disappointing and frustrating. And like that's the bottom line of it. It was disappointing and frustrating. And so I said, okay, let me go look at what's going on around me and figure out how I need to push forward while this does what it does, right? Like I was looking at one of my Ethereum wallets the other day, and some of the stuff I have in there, bro, like I mean, when I tell you it is so like zero level, like some of the stuff, the you can't even see the data from the chains anymore because the servers aren't running. Yeah, like there's so many back in the day things that I got involved in, like that you just look at it now and it's just like, damn, like it was all good a week ago. I mean, obviously not a week. Like for those of you who know, I've been here for a while, and that was back in the day when like you just was jumping on everything. And I mean, I didn't jump on everything like some other folks I know, but yeah, I had a number of things, and now I just look at it and be like, wow, like was I like I'm still wondering, was I right? And I don't know if to say right as in like, did I pick the right winner? But more like, was I right in how this technology and it functioning in a monetary system would work for the improvement or the betterment of some type of um, economic sovereignty. And I feel like this past year, for the things that like came up to my attention, um, just gave me a little bit more doubt. Like, it just gave me a little bit more doubt. Like I said, you got the situation with the tax thing that they're doing. And again, Reggie said this a while ago, where it was like, yeah, you can block individual Bitcoin at the Satoshi level. Like the And granted, it isn't the same type of fungibility as the stuff that is on the Ethereum blockchain. And like that non-fungibility within that ecosystem, but it is enough. And some folks have been working on this to figure out, like, all right, how do we start getting to, oh, we could track this, but and if you're not at the miner level, or if you don't got miners in your network, like clean Bitcoin versus dirty Bitcoin, right? I think that in this administration, no later than whoever comes after Trump, that's going to make it's going to be not sensible, but it's going to be more of a like, oh, because like I said at the top of this, um, the Russian government is coming up with regulations and policies that's encouraging mining, and I think it's at like the mom and pop level. I don't remember the specific detail of it, but it's not like it's either at the mom and pop level, it might be at the big business, commercial level, but nonetheless, they're encouraging it. So now imagine when it gets to a certain level, right, scale wise, for how they're sitting in the network, we're going to start hearing this talk about like well, we can't trust the blah, blah, blah's network. It has to be American. It has to be Western. Like, again, one of the things that I did not like, and I'm not a fan of Cynthia Loomis. I've been saying this for years now because she was one of the first people I started hearing talk about the patriotic stance of, like, she was throwing the patriotism, nationalism thing in crypto. And it was just, but we what? That's literally against the whole, it's being borderless. That's literally against the whole open technology thing. That's literally against this thing of like economic sovereignty. When you start throwing in the whole thing with whose flag do you claim? Like, I'm for whoever's pro, economic sovereignty, but obviously that's not what you pushing. Now, granted, she's like she cleaned up a little bit, but that's what she's still pushing towards. At least in my opinion. Y'all could definitely disagree with me. Yo, hold on. I gotta add that one on there. Listen, yo, I, Charleston White is on a whole different train, yo. Charleston White is on a whole different train. Um, yeah, I just, like I said, I stepped away from just like everything. Called this shit a day. Uh, in all honesty, I can't say everything, but y'all know I'm not on the whole price talk business, and I don't be out here like, oh yeah, look at my wallet. Da, da, da. Nah, dog, I'm not that guy. um, I still deals with the BTC through the Cash App joint because of how the purchase roundup thing works, and I do one or two other things, but all of that, like, I'm just on the like play it smart, play it safe. Who was it? Um, Celsius, Celsius, Celsius. All right, so Celsius, as they have gone through their whole liquidation thing through the courts and blah blah blah. So, random story, random story. For the longest, they were emailing me like, "Hey, you have crypto that's still on our exchanges, so, or at least still on our server. We need you to take this." This is like 2 months, yo. And so I'm just like, I think it's a fake email. I don't really believe it, blah, 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 blah. And so then I started actually, because it kept like popping up like at least twice a week at a certain point. Like in the beginning, they just hit you like every here and there, like, hey, da, 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 this is going on. And then it's just it kept coming up more and more. And I said, you know what? Let me look into this. Let me actually figure out if this is real or not. Because when I exited from Celsius, like I made sure to take all of what I could. And that was what was that, the 2022 Miami Bitcoin conference, I think. But yeah, after like seeing how situations was working there, I said, all right, I'm out. Like it's a done deal. This isn't cool, so I exited, right? And I took everything that I could, that for the way the payment fee and all that stuff worked. I took everything that I could. And so when I was getting this email, or I was getting the emails, I was just like, nah, that can't be, because I don't feel like I left any dust on their wallets. So I was like, well, what the hell? But again, the price now isn't the price it was. What is that, back in 22, 21 or whatever? So I said, you know what? All right, let me look into this. I look into this. And why did they do the fuckery of, well, if you want to claim this, you got to either use, you couldn't send it to a self-custody wallet. You couldn't send it to a self-custody wallet directly. I'm going to say it that way. It was Venmo and it was something else. I forgot what the other option was, but I was like, I don't want to deal with that other option. I had the Venmo account sitting around for, no, matter of fact, that's a lie. It was it Venmo and PayPal? I didn't want to deal with Venmo. And I said, well, I got one of those PayPal things. I'll just send it over there. Sent it over there. Not even going to lie. It was actually more than I thought it would have been. But then I hit my guy CJ up. Again, shout outs to CJ the Smart guy. That's my CPA guy. I was like, listen, such and such hit me up and said I got some crypto over there. And so I claimed it and I pushed it over here, but I'm not going to do nothing with it. He was like, bet, just let it sit. Considering the things, all right, I'm talking to the get the bag people right now. Get the bag people. Considering the things that are going on right now, for what folks are like speculating will bring, BTC up, and then everybody else goes up because, like, what is it, high tides lift all ships or whatever. It's one of those, like, well, honestly, if it works out, cool. I can pay some bills and stuff off. But if it doesn't, I'm not mad about it. Why? Because when I left the platform, I thought it was at zero. But because of how things have gone, it wasn't the dust. Basically, the dust in terms of dollar value had increased. It went from zero to where the dust actually was worth a couple of dollars, right? But am I going to do anything with it? No. Why? Because I'm not trying to deal with the taxes. Like, for what's going on in personal life, and then for how the IRS is moving, and just the way that PayPal and Venmo and all of these other, fintech companies like tell on you to the IRS, in my mind, is just not worth doing stuff. I'm gonna just let it sit. If it goes up, cool. If somehow they mess it up and it just drops to zero, it is what it is. That's what I'm dealing with in this space right now. Literally looking at the stuff going, all right, this is the stuff I have. If it goes up, cool. At the end of the day, it's just me trying to get, some bills paid. And that's it. Like, still on the precious metal side stuff. Listen, Trump killing, like, what? Like, think about what the IRS does and how the government funds the on the table stuff it does and the under the table stuff it does. You can't fund the under tables. Like, I would actually be more worried if Trump, I would be more worried if any administration actually did away with the IRS, because at that point it's like whatever agency and tools and mechanisms that they have at their ability that replaces the IRS, like, that's even more of a fucking nightmare situation and a super potential headache. If you're saying it's actually we're shutting down the IRS and then we're going to stand up this whole new agency. Again, I just said it. The IRS can investigate you off your financial activity with another person and not tell you. They can collect all of your stuff and not tell you. The bank can give them your stuff and not tell you. They can do that according to recent court cases or court case. It was one case that was like the precedent to set all of that in motion, right? So now, what do you think the powers and abilities of an agency that is meant to replace the IRS would be able to do? Like, no, like IRS may not be my number one pro, agency within the governmental structure, but like, I would really worry on if he was like, yeah, so by blah 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 date, the IRS is closed down. Now, then the other play would be like, are you just gonna rename it and then still have the same people and the same abilities? Like, what did you really do with that? That was nothing. But nonetheless, like, nah, he's not shutting down no damn IRS, bro. There's he's here for 4 years. Well, he should be here for 4 years. There's no way they're letting him or whoever's bright eye in his administration do that level of poking the bear and messing with the system. Wait, what? Okay, I gotta talk to you offline because I am not tracking anything going on with them right now. Just on, again, I stepped away, so I've just been out of the loop on a lot of stuff. But yeah, I'm definitely still pro precious metals. Definitely still pro precious metals. Um, yeah. Yo, like, bro, are you trolling me right now? Like, there's no way the UK would allow the US to acquire Canada because it's still their territory. The Greenland thing, that's not happening either. Like, my mom said something about that the other day, and I was like, like, no, and no. That's literally him just saying stuff that he cannot actually execute. He can't. Even the Panama situation, like, no, like, now granted, like, where the canal actually runs, that's like a whole, like, what do they call it? It's not a trade zone. It's another label, but like, yes, it has this particular strip is not jurisdiction. Oh, I didn't know. Damn. Wow. Okay. I gotta reach out. Wow. Damn. And I literally just thought about them the other day because I was like, yo, I want to take a trip over to Mexico and hang out with them for a bit and just talk on, just the survivability stuff and just being out of the US. Damn. Wow. All right, I gotta send her a line. Jesus. Y'all threw me off with that one, bruh. Wow. Okay. Damn. Condolences. Um, but yeah. All right. I've been on too long, and I'm fucking getting jumbled in different thoughts and things. But nonetheless, again, I don't know what I'm gonna end up doing or how I'm gonna proceed forward on the channel. Honestly, um, the idea of it just being like keeping track of record for some of the stories and things going on in the space that I find interesting versus the trying to be more contextual and predictive um, to how things will go forward. Because the the Ukraine situation was so not on my radar, but like the fallout of the Ukraine situation in terms of sanctions and what the U.S. what Russia is doing and how it's maneuvering to counter the sanctions and how like that's the growth part within the crypto stuff and like their regulations and their policies have definitely stepped up since the start. Yeah, so and then just to see like how this thing plays out within the Trump administration, I don't even know. Honestly, don't even know. But yeah. So you know, that is my ramble of where the F I've been. Just been over here dealing with life because life been lifing. Um, and I had to get some other things in order. And the space just kind of disappointed me and burnt me out. So yeah. But I appreciate the folks who tapped in. I appreciate the folks that are watching. Um, I don't know if I might end up changing the day because for the next couple of months, I'm dealing with some Uncle Sam stuff, and the schedule is different than what my normal schedule is. So I might end up changing the timeline. I'm not 100% certain yet, um, but time will tell. If I can at least get to like once a week, I will be impressed with myself. But if I could do twice a week, and I don't know if it'll be a live thing or like just pre-recording stuff like before, or like the no face stuff, I'm gonna figure it out. Y'all. Just don't know what it's gonna be yet. But other than that, I hope everybody's had a good weekend. I hope that, if you're in some cold place, you at least was able to stay warm. If you're in a warm place, you at least being hydrated. If you're overseas, be safe, depending on the region you in. And yeah, as I say, like, um, damn, it's been a minute, yo. Like, I don't even remember my closeout statement right now. um, yeah. Uh, be in a safe place in a safe space, like from one human to the next, that is the best that I can wish. All right. So I'm Trek with 2Ks, and this is Weekend Crypto. Bros, you here on the Jedi. And shout outs to the Thompson family, and man, like, damn, I'm really wild on that one. I am really wild on that one, y'all. Other than that, one,